Welcome back to the Pitwall Pod. Today we're diving into all the action from the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, where strategy, speed, and split-second decisions shaped one of the most compelling races of the season. From dramatic overtakes and tire gambles to championship implications, we'll break down the key moments that defined the Spanish Grand Prix and what they mean for the title fight moving forward. So buckle up, let's get into the biggest stories from Barcelona. Russell leads the way in FP1. The 2026 Spanish Grand Prix weekend got underway at Barcelona, Catalunya, with plenty of storylines. And it was George Russell who set the benchmark in the opening practice session. The Mercedes driver topped the timesheets with a blistering 1 minute 16.363 seconds, finishing just over 2 tenths ahead of championship contender Oscar Piastri, while Charles Leclerc rounded out the top three for Ferrari. FP1 wasn't just about the headline times. Formula One's rookie drivers program took center stage, with 7 rookie drivers participating across the grid. Among them, Leonardo Fornaroli impressed massively by finishing 5th overall in the McLaren, while Paul Ahrens secured 6th in the Audi. Dino Beganovic and Arvid Lindblad also delivered solid performance inside the top 10. For the home crowd, however, it was a frustrating start. Carlos Sainz experienced an early issue in the pit lane when his Williams refused to restart, although he eventually returned to track after a brief delay. Things were even worse for Williams reserve Luke Browning, who missed the entire session due to an electrical problem before he could complete a single lap. There were also several drivers battling handling and balance issues around the demanding Barcelona circuit. Max Verstappen complained that his Red Bull lacked balance throughout the session. Gabriel Bortoleto described the Audi as unstable after a trip through the gravel, and Oscar Piastri reported brake vibrations that McLaren would only be able to address before the next session. As teams switched to the soft tires during the final half an hour, Verstappen briefly jumped to the top of the leaderboard before Russell responded with the fastest lap of the session. That time ultimately remained unbeaten as the checkered flag fell. The final top 5 saw Russell ahead of Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen and the standout rookie Leonardo Fornaroli, setting the stage for what looks like a fascinating battle heading into free practice 2. Norris strikes back in FP2. After George Russell led the way in the opening session, free practice 2 belonged to McLaren as Lando Norris edged out both Russell and teammate Oscar Piastri in an incredible close battle at the top of the timesheets. Just 57 thousandths of a second separate the top 3 drivers, with Norris setting a best lap of 1:15.426 seconds to finish a mere 9 thousandths ahead of Russell and less than 600ths clear of championship rival Piastri. The session highlighted just how competitive the leading teams are heading into qualifying, but it also revealed a common theme across the paddock. Grip was at a premium, and tire management looked challenging on the demanding Barcelona circuit. Early on, Max Verstappen showed promising pace on the hard combined tire, nearly matching Russell's FP1 benchmark despite running on the least grippy rubber available. However, the reigning champion continued to struggle with balancing issues throughout the session and was unable to challenge the McLaren and Mercedes once the soft tires appeared. Piastri was the first driver to break into the 1.15 range and looked set to remain on top until Russell responded with a strong lap for Mercedes, but the battle didn't stop there. Norris, returning after sitting out FP1 for rookie running, delivered a perfectly timed qualifying simulation to move to the top and stay there until the checkered flag. Mercedes continued to look extremely competitive, with Russell finishing second and Kimi Antonelli returning to action in fifth after missing the opening session. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc was fourth, while Lewis Hamilton endured a more difficult afternoon, reporting rear-end issues and finishing ninth. The session wasn't without interruption. A brief virtual safety car was triggered when Liam Lawson's racing bull stopped near the pit lane exit, while Sergio Perez was handed a warning after a near miss with Isaac Hatcher at turn 4. Further down the order, Aston Martin faced another difficult session. Fernando Alonso came under investigation for a potential pit exit infringement, while teammate Lance Stroll finished more than 4 seconds off the pace, leaving plenty of work to do overnight. As Friday came to a close, one thing became clear. McLaren, Mercedes and Ferrari are separated by only fractions of a second. While tire degradation expected to play a major role this weekend, the battle for pole position is shaping up to be one of the closest of the season. Russell completes Mercedes practice sweep in FP2. Heading into qualifying day, George Russell and Mercedes continued their impressive form by topping free practice 3 at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Russell delivered the fastest lap of this weekend so far, a 1:15.679 seconds, finishing just over 2/10 ahead of Oscar Piastri, while Charles Leclerc secured third place for Ferrari. It marked Russell's second session at the top of the timesheets after also leading FP1 and reinforced the growing belief that Mercedes could be genuine contenders for pole position. Unlike Friday's busy session, Saturday morning began quietly. Most teams opted to stay in the garage during the opening stages, focusing on preparation rather than mileage. Only the Cadillacs of Valtteri Bottas and Sergio Perez initially ventured out after overnight work had forced the team to break curfew regulations. Once the track became more active, attention quickly shifted toward qualifying simulations. Lando Norris set the early benchmark before Mercedes emerged as the team to beat, with Russell immediately finding strong pace on the soft tires. The session was interrupted by a red flag just over half through when Bottas suffered a brake issue exiting turn 10. The Cadillac driver reported losing the brake pedal and became stranded in the gravel, bringing running a temporary halt while marshals recovered the car. When the session resumed, teams faced a new challenge. The track temperatures climbed to around 50 degrees Celsius, making tire performance difficult to manage even over a single flying lap. Drivers across the grid struggled to extract maximum grip as the conditions became increasingly demanding. Russell handled those conditions best, becoming the first driver of the weekend to break into the 1:15 range. Piastri came closest but finished just over 3/10 behind, while Charles Leclerc split the two McLarens after edging out Lando Norris for third. One of the biggest talking points involved championship leader Kimi Antonelli. The Mercedes rookie endured a frustrating session, repeatedly encountering traffic during his final runs. After appearing to impede Lance Stroll while backing off through turn 1, Antonelli was investigated and later received a reprimand for erratic driving. Combined with further traffic issues later in the lap, he could only manage 7th place despite showing promised pace early in the session. Behind the leading quartet, Lewis Hamilton finished 5th for Ferrari, followed by Max Verstappen in 6th. Verstappen continued to search for answers after a difficult practice program, while Red Bull appeared to be lacking the outright pace shown by Mercedes and McLaren. As practice concluded, the picture heading into qualifying was becoming clearer. Mercedes looked exceptional strong over one lap. McLaren remained right in the fight, Ferrari appeared close enough to challenge, and Red Bull still had to work to do. With the margins at the front measured in tenths, The battle for pole position was set up perfectly for an exciting Saturday afternoon. Russell delivers pole position masterclass. After looking strong throughout practice, George Russell converted Mercedes' pace into pole position with a stunning performance in qualifying for the 2026 Spanish Grand Prix. The Briton produced a sensational final lap of 1 minute 14.679 seconds to secure his third pole position of the season, bouncing back perfectly from a difficult weekend in Monaco and confirming Mercedes as the team to beat around Barcelona. But while Russell celebrated, one of the biggest stories of the afternoon belonged to Lewis Hamilton. The Ferrari driver delivered his best qualifying performance of the season, producing a brilliant final effort to snatch second place on the grid. Hamilton missed pole by just 0.06 of a second and secured his first front row start in several races, giving Ferrari hope heading into Sunday's Grand Prix. Championship leader Kimi Antonelli completed an all-Mercedes second row in third, although it marked the young Italian's lowest qualifying position of the season. Even so, Antonelli remained firmly in the fight, finishing only 0.3 behind his teammate and narrowly ahead of Lando Norris. The margins at the front were incredibly tight. Norris qualified fourth for McLaren, with Max Verstappen fifth and Isaac continuing his impressive season by placing the second Red Bull in sixth. Oscar Piastri, who had looked like a pole contender throughout practice, could only manage seventh, after failing to improve when it mattered most. However, the defining moment of qualifying came in Q3, when Charles Leclerc's session ended dramatically. After showing strong pace throughout the weekend, the Ferrari driver suffered an unexpected snap through turn 4. An attempted correction sent him through the gravel and into the barriers, bringing out the red flag and ending his hopes of challenging for pole. With no lap time recorded in the final session, Leclerc was left 10th on the grid despite having the pace to fight near the front. Earlier in qualifying, several notable names failed to advance through the knockout stages. Home favorite Carlos Sainz was eliminated in Q2 and could only manage 16th, while Fernando Alonso endured a nightmare session in front of the Spanish fans. The Aston Martin driver was knocked out in Q1 and will start from the very back of the grid after being outqualified by teammate Lance Stroll. There were also standout performances from further down the field. Liam Lawson secured 8th for Racing Bulls, while Nico Hülkenberg delivered one of Audi's strongest qualifying results of the season. With an impressive 9th place, both drivers successfully capitalized on the changing track conditions and mistakes from some of the bigger teams. As qualifying came to a close, Mercedes emerged as the clear winners of Saturday. Russell's pace over a single lap looked exceptional. Antonelli remained firmly in contention, and for the first time in several races, the Silver Arrows looked out 2 positions inside the top 3. The stage was now set for an intriguing Spanish Grand Prix. Russell would start from pole, Hamilton was back on the front row, Antonelli was hunting another victory, and with tire degradation expected to be a major factor, Sunday's race promised far more than a simple sprint to turn 1. Hamilton's Ferrari fairy tale comes true in Barcelona. The 2026 Spanish Grand Prix delivered one of the most memorable moments of the season as Lewis Hamilton claimed his first Grand Prix victory as a Ferrari driver, ending Mercedes' perfect winning streak and writing another remarkable chapter in his legendary Formula One career. After qualifying on the front row alongside pole sitter and old teammate George Russell, Hamilton knew Ferrari needed something different to beat the dominant Mercedes package over race distance. The answer came in the form of an aggressive 3-stop strategy, a bold gamble that ultimately proved decisive. At lights out, Russell got away cleanly and held the lead into turn 1, while Hamilton remained second ahead of Kimi Antonelli, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Behind them, Charles Leclerc immediately became charging through the field, after his qualifying crash left him only 10th on the grid. Early in the race, tire degradation quickly became the biggest factor, with the track temperatures soaring above 50 degrees. Drivers reported severe grip issues and rapidly declining tire performances. Russell initially controlled the pace, building a small gap at the front, but it soon became clear that managing tires would be just as important as outright speed. Hamilton was the first of the leaders to blink, diving into the pits early and committing Ferrari to an alternative strategy, while Mercedes and McLaren stuck to a more conventional approach. Ferrari rolled the dice with a 3-stop race plan, hoping fresher tires would outweigh the extra pit stop. As the race progressed, the strategy became to pay off. Hamilton's pace on fresh tires was exceptional, often lapping multiple seconds faster than the leaders ahead. Every stint seemed stronger than the last, and gradually the Ferrari driver put himself into contention for victory. Meanwhile, a fascinating battle was developing within Mercedes. Championship leader Kimi Antonelli appeared to have more speed than teammate Russell, and repeatedly closed the gap. The young Italian asked whether he was free to push, but Mercedes remained cautious, wary of risking both cars while managing the race from strong positions. The turning point arrived when Fernando Alonso retired from his home Grand Prix, triggering a virtual safety car. Ferrari reacted instantly, bringing Hamilton in for the final pit stop at precisely the right moment. The reduced speed limit allowed him to complete the stop with minimal time loss and emerged still in the race lead. From that moment on, Hamilton never looked back. Lap after lap, the 7-time world champion extended his advantage over Russell, demonstrating both the pace of the Ferrari and the confidence that had been building all weekend. What had started as a strategy gamble was turning into a masterclass. But the drama wasn't over. With just 5 laps remaining, Antonelli finally made his move on Russell to grab second place. It looked like another strong result for the championship leader, but moments later disaster struck. Damage to the Mercedes forced Antonelli to slow dramatically before eventually pulling off the circuit and retiring from the race. Almost on the same exact time, Ferrari suffered another setback with Charles Leclerc, who had fought brilliantly from 10th, developed a power steering problem and retired late in the race. A second virtual safety car followed, but by then Hamilton's lead was secure. When the checkered flag finally fell, Hamilton crossed the line nearly 20 seconds ahead of Russell to secure a famous victory. Lando Norris completed an all-British podium in third, creating Formula One's first all-British top 3 finish since 1968. Behind the podium finishers, Max Verstappen came home fourth ahead of Oscar Piastri, while Isaac Hadjar added more valuable points for Red Bull in 6th. Pierre Gasly delivered an excellent 7th place for Alpine, with Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad scoring more for Racing Bulls. For Hamilton and Ferrari, however, this day belonged entirely to them. After months of adaptation, questions and growing expectations, the partnership finally achieved what fans around the world had been waiting for: a Ferrari victory with Lewis Hamilton behind the wheel. The championship picture also tightened considerably. Antonelli's retirement opened the door for his rivals to gain valuable ground, while Ferrari's breakthrough win suggested that the balance of power in Formula One may be shifting once again. Barcelona delivered strategy, drama, heartbreak and history, and at the center of it all stood Lewis Hamilton, a Ferrari winner at last. Top 5 driver championship. Antonelli 156 points, Hamilton 115 points, Russell 106 points, Leclerc with 75 points and Norris with 73 points. Top 5 Constructors' Championship. Mercedes 262 points, Ferrari 190 points, McLaren 141 points, Red Bull 89 points and Alpine 57 points. And that brings us to the end of an incredible weekend at the 2026 Spanish Grand Prix. From George Russell's dominant pace throughout practice and pole position heroics to Lewis Hamilton's emotional first Grand Prix victory for Ferrari, Barcelona gave us everything Formula One fans could ask for: strategy battles, dramatic retirements, championship twists, and a little bit of history along the way. With Kimi Antonelli's late retirement shaking up the title fight and Ferrari proving they can challenge Mercedes at the front, the championship battle is becoming more fascinating with every race weekend. The doubleheader is now complete and drivers and teams will get a brief chance to regroup, analyze the data, and prepare for the next challenge. Formula One returns at the Austrian Grand Prix from June 26 to June 28, where we'll see whether Ferrari can build on this breakthrough victory, whether Mercedes can strike back, and how Antonelli responds after one of the most disappointing races of his season so far. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you're following us so you never miss a race recap, analysis show, or special feature throughout the 2026 Formula One season. You can also join the conversation and get even more Formula One content across our social media channels: Instagram at Empowered Paddock, TikTok Around the World in 24 Tracks, and YouTube Lights Out with Hanne. Follow, like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your fellow motorsports fans. It really helps us grow and brings more passionate Formula One supporters into our community. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, keep your eyes on the apex, your foot on the throttle, and we'll see you in Austria for another chapter of the 2026 Formula One season. Lights out, and goodbye.